Good evening, Windsor. At 11:17 on a Thursday morning, Prince William's phone rang. This was not any call. It was the kind of call that comes rarely, maybe only twice in a lifetime. The kind of call that changes everything. When Prince William answered the phone, his face lost all its color. His hands, which are usually very steady, started to shake. Prince William was standing alone in his office at Kensington Palace. The winter lights were shining through the windows. They seemed too bright. The call was from Sir Clive Alderton. He is King Charles' private secretary. Sir Clive is known for staying calm during very difficult times. This time his voice was different. It was not panicked. It was urgent. "Sir," he said, "you need to come to Windsor right away. Something serious has happened." Prince William did not waste time asking questions. He knew from the tone of Sir Clive's voice that something was very wrong. Whatever had happened, it was more than a normal problem. It was something. Prince William ended the call, stood still for a few seconds. Then he moved quickly with a sense of urgency that he had learned from his training. He found Catherine in the nursery, where she was helping Charlotte with her schoolwork. When Catherine saw Prince William's face, she stopped talking. She knew that look. She had seen it before when his grandmother died. Without saying a word, Catherine stood up, followed Prince William into the hallway. "It's bad," Prince William said quietly. "They won't say what it is over the phone. It's bad enough that they're keeping everything secret." Catherine put her hand on Prince William's arm, squeezed it gently. She did not ask any questions. Sometimes it's better to be quiet. Within a minute, Prince William's security team had been told what to do. A car was waiting for him in the courtyard, ready to take him to Windsor. The staff at Kensington Palace were moving quickly. They could sense that something was different. The housekeeper, who had worked for the Wales family for 15 years, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the December weather. As Prince William's car drove away from Kensington Palace, the palace communications team was getting messages. They were locking down all essential media briefings. Senior staff were being called back from their time off. The machinery of crisis management was starting to move. It was moving fast. At Windsor Castle, the atmosphere was more tense. Staff who had arrived for their normal duties were being redirected. Corridors were being. Private rooms were being sealed. Princess Anne had arrived 30 minutes earlier. Her face was set in a serious expression. Queen Camilla was inside the apartments, and people who saw her said she looked like she had aged 10 years overnight. The telling sign of something being very wrong was the lack of information. There was no statement, no health update, no press release, just silence. In that silence, one thing was clear. Whatever was happening, it was going to change everything. The morning had started like any other. Prince William had woken up at 6:30, had breakfast with Catherine and the children, and was getting ready for his day. They talked about George's exams and Charlotte's piano recital. It was all very normal. Then things started to change. Prince William's private secretary had mentioned that the King's morning schedule had been cleared. All appointments had been cancelled without explanation. The official reason was that it was a routine change, but staff, who had been preparing for a ceremony, found themselves being told to go home with barely an hour's notice. Then word came that Camilla had cancelled her engagement at a London hospital. She never cancelled anything. She was always reliable, always showing up no matter what. Prince William tried to call his father, but he couldn't get through. Prince William was getting more and more worried. He had tried to call Princess Anne. She wasn't answering. She always answered her phone. It was part of her duty. Now she was not picking up. Prince William's sense of unease was growing. He had a feeling that something was very wrong. He couldn't shake it off. Catherine noticed that Prince William was distant, that his attention was focused on something she couldn't see. "Is everything all right?" she asked. Prince William just said that he couldn't reach Princess Anne. It was strange. Catherine knew that Prince William's instincts were rarely wrong. As the morning went on, more pieces of the puzzle started to emerge. None of them made sense yet. Prince William's team mentioned that the King's schedule had been cleared and that Camilla had cancelled her engagement. It was all very strange. Prince William couldn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear: something was very wrong. Prince William's sense of unease was growing by the minute. He tried to call his father, but he couldn't get through. He tried to reach Princess Anne. She was not answering. The silence was deafening. Prince William knew that he had to get to Windsor as soon as possible. The car was waiting for him, and Prince William got in. The driver started the engine. They sped off towards Windsor. Prince William's heart he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He didn't know what was happening. He knew that it was going to change everything. At 8:53 minutes and 53 seconds, a number that bypassed all the palace protocols came through. The line rang 3 times before connecting, but instead of Charles' voice, William heard the tone of his father's private secretary. The secretary explained that His Majesty was in meetings and would return the call shortly. Something in the secretary's voice felt rehearsed, like he was following instructions to deflect rather than inform. It was as if he were trying to maintain a fiction that was already crumbling. William ended the call feeling more unsettled than before. His unease was now solidifying into something to dread. At 11 o'clock, William was supposed to be at his veterans meeting, shaking hands and hearing stories from men and women who had served. Instead, he sat at his desk staring at his phone, waiting for clarity that refused to come. He was waiting for someone to call and explain that everything was fine, that he'd been worrying over nothing. Catherine brought him tea, setting it down gently beside the papers he'd stopped reading 20 minutes. "William," she said, her hand resting briefly on his shoulder. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it." He nodded. The reassurance felt hollow, inadequate. Some things couldn't simply be handled. Some things could only be endured. Then at 11:17, his phone rang with that tone. The one reserved for the most urgent palace communications. The one that meant someone at the level of palace operations needed to reach him immediately. William picked up on the ring, and Sir Clive Alderton's voice, strained and urgent in ways William had never heard before, delivered words that would replay in William's mind for years to come. The truth emerges. The drive to Windsor felt endless despite the speed. William sat in the seat, silent, rigid, staring through tinted windows at countryside that blurred past in streaks of winter brown and grey. His protection officer, Thomas, who had served him for 8 years and seen him through difficult moments, knew better than to attempt conversation. Some silences demand respect. This one felt almost sacred in its heaviness. When the car finally pulled through Windsor's gates, William noticed immediately how different everything felt. The familiar landscape of the castle grounds had transformed into something ominous. Staff stood in positions clustered in doorways rather than moving through their normal routines. Security had been doubled, tripled, with additional officers stationed at every entrance. The main entrance, typically bustling with the activity of a working palace, was sealed except for essential personnel cordoned off, as if preparing for siege rather than governance. He was directed not to the reception rooms where official business normally occurred, but to a private wing, one used only for the most sensitive family matters. Anne was waiting in the corridor outside the king's study, standing perfectly still in a way that somehow communicated more tension than any pacing could have. She stood with her arms crossed, her face grave, but composed in that way she had mastered over decades of navigating crisis. When she saw William approaching, something in her expression shifted subtly, not sympathy, but acknowledgement. She knew what he was about to learn. She knew it would hurt in ways that would reshape him. "How bad?" William asked, his voice low, afraid of the answer but needing it nonetheless. "Worse than we thought possible," she said. Inside the study, Charles sat in a high-backed chair near the fireplace, though no fire burned despite the December chill that had settled into the room's corners. The room felt cold, sterile, wrong in ways William couldn't immediately articulate. Camilla stood behind him, one hand resting on his shoulder in a gesture that seemed both protective and desperately clinging. On the desk, carefully arranged, as if presentation could somehow lessen impact, were reports with official letterheads, legal documents bearing government seals, and a single handwritten letter in Charles' distinctive script. Sir Clive Alderton, along with the king's physician and 2 constitutional advisors, William recognized from previous sensitive meetings, stood near the windows, their faces carrying the weight of men who had delivered unbearable news and were now waiting to watch another person